Oh my gosh, what are we doing? I don't know. Hey everyone, this is Travis Licata, and I am back with another Whiny Parent podcast. And today's episode, I'm covering Fringe Season 1, and I will be going over Episode 4, which is called The Arrival. Um, Before I get into that, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is listening to this podcast. I hope everyone is doing well during this extremely scary time in all of our lives. I hope that in some way this podcast provides some type of break for you as maybe an opportunity to dive into one of my favorite shows ever. So thank you for stopping by, and I'll try not to ramble on for too long. So, although I have said that if you're having trouble sleeping, perhaps the sound of my voice will help. Um, so let's go into Fringe season 1, episode 4. In general, spoiler warning: if you haven't watched Fringe and you don't want to be spoiled ahead of time, now's the time to go and watch it. Again, I am able to watch this show through the IMDb app, which I believe is made available through Amazon Prime. I don't know if IMDb app is something that's accessible to other streaming devices as far as like if you can search for it. But it's currently free on the IMDb app, so if you're able to search for it and it's there, great, go watch it, and then you can come back here and listen to me, who I've already rambled on for a couple minutes. So, uh, so one of the things I had, at least I think I indicated during the pilot episode recap, was I love how this show connects the dots, and they do a great job answering questions, like following a bread trail to solve a mystery. And yes, there are more questions, but it's so enticing to watch. And this episode is possibly, oh, it's one of the best examples of connecting the dots. And if you've ever started a show or a movie and you see a character and you just wonder, who the bleep is this guy? There's a moment in this show right off the bat that you have that moment. Um, and it's surrounded about, and that feeling is surrounded around the bald man. Because this episode starts in a diner, and there's this bald guy sitting at a window seat. He's taking notes. You can't even understand what those notes mean because it's some kind of foreign or cryptic language, and he has this weird set of binoculars, and he's staring at a construction site nearby and all the construction workers. And so the whole scene is very odd, because you don't know who this guy is. Why is he looking at this construction site? And his, you know, conversation with his waitress is, he has a monotone voice. He orders in a fashion that's just very direct. There's no semblance of any enthusiasm from this guy. Um, so, and then if that wasn't weird enough, he orders this extremely rare roast beef sandwich with like a ton of jalapenos, and he throws on like an entire shakers worth of black pepper, and then add Tabasco sauce on top of that. And then all of a sudden, he basically devours it in like what's it's like less than a minute. Um, and even the way he orders it is odd. He has this very calm voice. There's there's no and there's no energy behind his voice, and it's like how he orders roast beef sandwich as rare as possible on a roll. Uh, do you have jalapenos? 11 of those on the side. Water, room temperature, no ice. I mean, it's just. I probably could have just done it in my own voice, and it would have probably been more accurate than me trying to give an impression of it. So, uh, we'll count that as a whiny parent fail. And it's just a wildly interesting scene that turns crazy. Um, One, the person just he doesn't seem normal. There's something off there. And two, all of a sudden, he's the table in the diner started to vibrate, and then a huge explosion happens at the construction site. And then he gets up. I think he puts money on the table to pay for the bill, and he goes walking off towards the explosion where everyone else is running from. That's the start of the episode. If that doesn't tell you, all right, buckle up, this is going to be another amazing ride, I don't know what will. So this entrance alone is phenomenal. Um, and it leads into what I will say, it's one of the best episodes of television I've ever seen. Um, I don't know how many times I'm going to say that throughout the course of me covering Fringe, but that's how much I love this show. And this episode specifically, I feel like when I think about Fringe, it does stand out to me. Um, so, and this episode also kind of highlights the turbulent relationship that Peter and Walter can have. It highlights Olivia's just amazing ability to be so good at her job, whether she's finding clues or deciphering this from that or tracking down like a killer. Like, so this episode has a wide range of character moments that are very compelling to watch. And so I'll try to go through a summary of what this episode is about, so that way you'll get a better understanding, and maybe through my own words, you'll understand why the show in this episode specifically is quite great. Um, so where that construction site explosion took place, um, there was a cylinder discovered, and so that cylinder was taken into, I guess, some type of government custody. And the Fringe team is brought to a secret, secured location where the device is being held. So basically, you find out right off the bat that the device hums at certain frequencies, and immediately there's some caginess with Walter, where Olivia asks him if he has a theory about it, and he says yes. And she's like, "Do you care to share?" And he's like, "No, not yet." So immediately you have this odd character, the bald man, Walter. Just a glimpse of like, okay, he has an idea. So it makes you wonder, okay, well, why isn't he sharing? Um, but it also there's a moment where they're like, okay, let's test the device here. We have security, and Walter just kind of blows up, and he just argues back that it's his lab is the only way he will be able to study it. Um, so his short temper is also on display, which plays a huge part later on uh, with regards to the dynamic with him and Peter. Um, and again, connecting the dots, we have later Olivia, she's looking through photographs from this investigation because there was a cylinder that was discovered before back in the 80s. And so she's looking through those pictures. And she's also looking through pictures of events that happened with the pattern over the course of the past few weeks. And she discovers a bald man in each of the pictures. So this random dude apparently is not so random, and and it's an automatic like mystery enticing thing. It's just genius. He's appeared in these photos decades apart, and you're like, who is this guy? And it's so interesting. It's like it just sucks you in, and you just want to rail through this entire episode to find out an answer. Um, so when Olivia asks Broyles, her boss, about this bald guy in the pictures, he immediately brings her to this kind of think tank room, and there's a group of people working in the room, and Broyles asks everyone to leave. Um, and there are just tons of pictures everywhere on the wall, and all of these pictures have the bald guy in these pictures. And Broyles tells Olivia, and this is one of those moments where you just like see how quick and how smart and how like just a great detective she is. He says that basically Dunham has discovered this unknown person in 3 weeks when it took everyone else almost a year. Um, he's been cited at all of these different events related to the pattern, which, if you're jumping on for the first time here, the pattern is there are these series of events or catastrophes or crimes that are scientific in nature, I guess is the way that it's described on the show, and they somehow appear to be linked in a way, which makes the Fringe team wonder if there's something bigger coming down the pipe. So I love this sequence of events where she's brought into the fold on, okay, we've been tracking this character, uh, don't have any idea who he is. There is no record of him in any database, and he is essentially a mystery. And so I think this episode does a great job, and the series as a whole does a great job at just highlighting how amazing Olivia Dunham really is. At, again, not as an FBI agent, you know, I guess her skills are already kind of assumed that she's qualified. Um, but the show really highlights Olivia, and she shines by when she notices these things or asks the right questions. I feel like she's really ahead of the curve with regards to other characters, and that's why she is one of my favorite characters in television. Um, so now we're going to head back to this secure location, and the creators of the show throw in another unknown character, one we've never seen before. He's got like a knit hat on, and he's just outside of this facility, the secret secured facility. How he knew where to go isn't quite clear yet. And so he exits the car, and you can tell that he has some kind of weird looking weapon, one you've never seen before. And he just starts blasting what looks like some type of concussive waves. I mean, they look like, I guess, bursts of air and energy. Um, and after he mows through the entire facility and the staff that's working there, we learn just how deadly this weapon is because they get a report. Boreals or Olivia, can't recall who gets the call, but they learn that everyone in the facility is dead. So, in learning that, the place was targeted and that someone must have been looking for the cylinder, uh, we get this first hostile reaction with Walter and Peter. Um, Peter, he's not sleeping well because he's sleeping in the same room as his father, and uh, Walter recites formulas to try to get to sleep. So Peter's on edge. He doesn't like being trapped in Boston with his father. He's ready to leave. He's told Olivia he's ready to leave, and eventually gets to the point where he says, okay, this is going to be the last case I work on. And so Walter explodes, saying, trust me. Like, we need to cover this device so that way its frequency can't be tracked or its signal can't be tracked. Uh, so Peter's just like, how do you know this? Like, what are you telling me about this? And Walter just says, will you just shut up and listen to me and do what I say? So, you know, Peter just kind of, you can tell he's frustrated. He goes off to get supplies, what's needed. And as soon as he leaves, Walter grabs Astrid and injects her with a needle, making her unconscious. Quite a startling scene to watch because, on one hand, you're thinking he's absolutely crazy. And then on the other hand, you're thinking, okay, he's been hiding something the whole time. Why would he do something like that unless he had a reason? Not that it justifies it, but it's just like you see that scene, you're like, what is going on? Like, is Walter not a long-term character anymore? Because is he going to get put in jail for that, or is something worse going to happen? Because that's such an extreme response to anything. Um, so after that happens, you flash forward just a bit, and you see Walter in a diner, and the bald guy shows up next to him and sits down with him at the table. So somehow Walter and this person know each other. Uh, and it should be made to reference that when Olivia is brought into that think tank room, Olivia asks, well, what is he doing? And Broyle says, well, he looks like he's just watching. And that's why everyone has called him the Observer. So we have at least a name to this character just to be able to say, okay, we can call this person the Observer. So the Observer shows up to a diner, sits with Walter, and they have this conversation. And it's clear that Walter has a connection to him. But we don't see it yet. We don't know why. And then later we see that Walter, he's apprehended, or we don't see that the fact that he's apprehended. It just, they get a call. Okay, he was found on the highway. They bring him in and put in a room where Olivia and Peter ask where the cylinder is. Oh, by the way, Walter hid the cylinder. So that little sequence of him drugging Astrid was so he could take the cylinder and hide it. And basically Walter explains that he has to keep it hidden for 4 hours for whatever reason. And he says he's doing it for the bald person. And Peter thinks he's delusional. He's like, yeah, you saw a picture of him. You don't know the bald person. Just tell us where the cylinder is and blah, 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 blah. And it just ramps up this conversation between the three of them where Walter explodes and compares Peter to his mother, and you can tell that based on Walter's emotions, he's upset, and he's just basically tired of being treated like a child. But his outburst essentially unburdens Peter from feeling guilty for wanting to bail, and so Peter bails. He leaves. He contacts someone on the phone when he goes back to the lab. The thing is, though, when he's back at the lab, he's alone, except you see that other unknown guy who killed everyone in the secret secured facility. So, after the break in the show, they come back and Peter is kidnapped. He's being tortured. He has these like slender like metal rods shoved up his nose, and electrical shocks are being delivered to him, and you can tell he's in a lot of pain. And this torturer is basically asking him questions that Peter doesn't know the answer to, or he adds some very odd questions about. I think he asked like, "What's the last time your father hugged you or kissed you?" And so Walter learns that Peter's captured, and he says, "Oh, that's awful." But he says Peter will lead this guy to the cylinder. And Olivia's, what, you told Peter? He's like, "No, I didn't have to." He's like, "I didn't tell him. I don't have to." And I'm just thinking, what does that even mean? Like, but as Peter's being tortured, it appears like this unknown guy has an earphone in. It's almost like he's listening to Peter's thoughts. So Peter gets asked a question, and despite not knowing the answer, it's like this guy is listening. It's like he's navigating Peter's brain in a way, and he's able to uncover secrets that Peter didn't even know were there. I mean, in the final sequence of this episode, you basically see Peter. He was brought out by gunpoint to dig up the cylinder, and then Olivia shows up, and that guy runs away, and you know, she's totally in charge, and she tracks him down, uh, and kills him, or at least that's what I'm assuming she did, and shoots him a couple times, and he doesn't move after that. And it's highlighting that she's not to be messed with. And on the other side, Peter noticed that the observer is there at that moment, and literally tackles him and tries to ask him how he knows his father and what's going on, what is the cylinder. And so he is asking the observer these questions, and as he goes along, the observer starts asking the same questions until it's just the observer being the only one talking. And the observer is literally asking the questions that Peter wants to ask before Peter even asks it. So, for whatever reason, this character is able to like tap into Peter's mind or understand what he's going to say. So, extremely riveting to watch the sequence, because you're just like, who is this person? How is he able to do this? And there isn't an answer. There isn't an answer. And it's one of those unanswered questions that I am okay with not knowing, because it is so well developed. Um, I don't know how many times I'm going to say this is one of the best episodes of television. For right now, I'm going to say this episode, which is called The Arrival, episode 4, it is one of the best. It's something you should watch. And I would normally say that if you haven't seen Fringe, this would be an episode that you could start with. But there's a major connection right at the end of the show to the pilot. So after Olivia comes home, she grabs some cereal. She doesn't have milk. She pours some Johnny Walker Black. And who shows up in the doorway of her kitchen? None other than John Scott. That's right. The guy who was announced dead in the pilot episode, then showed up in the last episode, episode 3, where his body was in some type of stasis unit of some kind, which makes you wonder, is he actually dead or is he alive? Well, now he's in Olivia's kitchen, and boom, that's the end of the episode. What a lead into another episode. The show is so freaking good. Um, I can't emphasize enough. If you haven't watched Fringe and you like sci-fi, um, if you like good mysteries, if you can handle like some of the grosser scenes that you might find in a show like Bones, where they have autopsies and stuff like that, this is a great show. Great character development, great storylines where they follow the breadcrumbs perfectly. Even if there's some unanswered questions, they do a great job at answering questions. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. I could go on about this episode forever. I want to watch the episode again right now. That's how good it is. Um, so, for everyone listening, thank you so much for taking time to listen to me yammer on. Don't forget to head to whinyparent.com. You can find Whiny Parent on social media at Whiny Parent. So that's at WINEY Parent. And also, if you're listening to this, click on our subscribe button over on YouTube as well. So that way you can get notified when we release new episodes. We're also responsible for some dorky cocktail recipe vlogs. So maybe that's another way you can get some laughs in while I make a complete mess while making some drinks. But stay tuned for more coverage of Fringe. That is all for right now, and I hope to be back soon covering the 5th episode. All right, everyone, take care, stay home, be safe. I'll talk to everyone later. Bye.